during your input session, we had really interesting conversation going on in the chat.
Yes, I noticed that. Yes,
about a lot of things. For instance, let me just see whether speaking tasks can be used at any level, or there are ones that were better with low-level students, or ones that were better with higher-level students. And we were talking about feedback as well.
Yeah, yeah. All these points are very, very important, because I think, well, I personally do believe that like you can use any type of speaking task with any level if you if you provide enough, for example, scaffolding for the learners, if you provide enough help for the learners, if you set it up the right way, so, and adjust the language accordingly. So the types of tasks can be the same, but the outcomes can be different. So they will still be speaking, but maybe of course they will be speaking a bit more at the higher level, not a bit, but more at higher level than compared to lower level students. I also mentioned that it's very important to identify what the aims of your activity are. So whether it's you're focusing on language or you're focusing on fluency. And based on that, how to set it up. But we have one question here.
Yeah, it's very important. Okay, this is my very first question to you. It's absolutely about, because during your presentation you kept drawing our attention on the importance of knowing the aim of a speaking task. Why we want our students to speak. And then in the Q&A part of the input session, you mentioned that there are two different aims of speaking activities. There are various aims, but there are two, namely speaking for fluency and speaking for accuracy. And so how are they different? Can you expand a little bit?
Let me show you some, because I just got some ideas from the current CELTA course on speaking activities. And for example, so this is one of the activity that the students were doing. So this is the task itself. So this is the task. So this is a list of questions, a list of statements, and the task is agree or disagree. So this is what was done with pre-intermediate level students. So what do you think? Do you think that what is the aim of this activity? Do you think it's like fluency or accuracy? Is it like language? What am I focusing on here? Language or fluency? Okay, if you could just type your ideas in the chat box, that would be really helpful. Fluency, Gabi, yes. Spot on. Yes, of course, fluency. So the aim is fluency here, but the way that this student or the trainee set it up was, okay, so have a look at these questions, agree or disagree. In the breakout rooms, talk together. So that's it. So now let's think about it. So instructions are clear. So if you think, right, so look at the statements, agree or disagree. So talk in pairs. But for some reason, the students were not very involved at this stage. So let me, I have some questions here. So I even prepared some questions. Let me see. Okay, so the first question is, okay, what do we practice skills or language? The second practice is, how do the students work? Groups, pairs, what do you think will be the best way for them to work?
Shall we answer these questions in the chat room? Olga?
Yeah, I think some people are answering, but I cannot just. Let me click on it. Cannot see it.
Everybody, we can just start guessing. Okay.
Yeah. So okay. So if we think about this question, so let's do it this way. And the next question that you can ask, so what do they need to know? What do the students need to know in order to be able to deal with it, right? Or to cope with this task? And what do the students need? Mm-hmm. Right. Let's have a look. So I'll just do it in a bit different way. Sorry about that. So for this, the best way for them to work could be, so do they work individually, in pairs, or in groups? What, like, any ideas? I think, yes. Okay, now I can see the chat box. Okay. Pair or small groups, absolutely right. So yes, pairs or small groups, because it will be like they need to agree or disagree. Okay, so how do they work? Do they ask questions or do they talk to each other? That's another thing. Maria is answering the question. Okay, so I would say that I'm in pairs and then move them in a group. Yes, absolutely. Turn talking. Yes. Give and ask for opinions. Yeah. So in some situations they can express their opinion, right? So they can speak. They express their opinion. So one student is talking. Another student. What is the other student doing? Listening, taking notes, or asking questions. So give them he needs the reason to listen to each other. So it's like, compare the answers. That's brilliant. Yes, they can compare the answers. They can discuss. But like the moment you say discuss, so that's I absolutely disagree with discuss. Sorry, Maria, because the moment you say discuss, you have a clear idea of how to do it. The students may have a completely different idea how to discuss. So they can just like one person may be talking all the time, another person maybe not talking it like at the same time. They can talk together. They can talk at the same time. So you need to I think you need to scaffold it. And this is what I'm very picky on that. I say, okay, so one student is talking, another student is listening and take notes, and then take turns. Or you may speak for 1 minute about this, for example, and then find the similarities or differences, or find 3 things that you agree on. But at least there's something that for them to work together. Right. Another thing is like, what do they need in order to be able to do that? Brainstorm is a brilliant idea. Okay, Sarah, thank you very much. So brainstorm is brilliant, yes. But at the same time, so they need ideas. That's why they can brainstorm their ideas. That's brilliant. In terms of language, yes, they need they need some understanding. So maybe they need some time to read through these statements. And if they have any questions about the statements, which is possible, so you can clarify them so that they know what to agree or disagree with. So they need some thinking time. And I would say, so look through it, figure out which you do you have any questions about these statements? No. All right. Now, tick the ones that you agree with. In this case, it will help them to focus maybe on 1 or 2 things that they really can speak about or express their opinion about. Yes. And after that, okay, in pairs, share your opinion or talk for 1 minute, find the things that you agree or disagree about. And in this case, it will be more they will have the reason to speak. They will have the reason to listen to each other. And it will it will help them to express their ideas. Of course, they would need, in terms of language, right? They would need probably some functional language, how to give reasons, how to express ideas, how to agree or disagree, why they agree, yes, giving reasons, maybe linking things, so I disagree because, or stating, yes, to support their opinion with something, give reasons. So this is, and also how to organize their ideas. So because they may have the ideas, but they may be quite erratical in terms of organizing ideas. In this case, it would help maybe to just to give them some simple steps, what, why, when. So some depending on the tasks here. So this is definitely fluency activity. So then the second one. Okay, so the second one will be definitely language activity. Yeah. So, and if you have a look at this, so we have we have a second conditional here. So to practice, if I had something, I would do this. If I had something, I would stay warm and dry. If I had something, I would carry things. And this is, as you can see, the personal is on a desert island. And we have some prompts, some language prompts here, and some pictures here for them to maybe to help with ideas. Okay. Do you think it's like it's appropriately organized? So can you work with it? Do you think if you show the picture like this, the students will like can you give instructions? So like using this sample, comment on all the things that you can see in the picture, maybe. So do you think the students will be able to give reasons and find like and work with language? Yes, no. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. So maybe yes, in most cases, if you support them with some visuals and pre-teach some vocabulary, absolutely, Sarah. Yes, thank you very much. And if you pre-teach some vocabulary, this can be the previous stage. Yes. So like you can show this picture and match the picture with the words. That would be nice. So if this is the language task, it's a speaking activity, language activity, but focusing on language, second conditional, and you can still make it communicative. You can still put the students in pairs or in groups even, because they can just share. But the language is limited to this. If I had something, I'd do this and this. If I had something, I'd do this and this. Some vocabulary, or some not vocabulary, sorry, some verbs can be revised here. This is not terms of prepare, stay, carry things and stuff like that, but it can be like elicited at the previous stage. Mm-hmm. They can definitely use the imagination with the use of objects. This will be even brilliant. Yes, yeah. That's absolutely fabulous. Yes, Maria, of course they can. Yeah. Right. So this is just a quick like difference between language activity, language speaking activity, and a fluency activity. So that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Thank you. And I can see that we have a question in the Q&A window. Sarah, if I give you access to unmute yourself, would you be ready to share your question with us? You can unmute yourself if...
Hello.
Oh, hello, Sarah.
Hi there. Nice to meeting you.
Yeah, that's so great to hear somebody's voice. You know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, my question was, because I always have some difficulties in kind of finding topics to talk about related to the levels, of course, of the students. So because I work in Italy, and most of the students here are between elementary and pre-intermediate levels, I always find difficulties in finding the right topics. If you could just give me like an idea of which kind of topic, maybe I can, I'm talking about discussions.
Yeah, but who do you teach? Do you teach adults or do you teach kids?
Teenagers and adults.
So like what things do you, like they might be interested in?
Well, for teenagers, it's more difficult, of course. Maybe, I don't know, for teenagers, we may want to talk about smartphones or social network or hobbies. Of course, not maybe not about political issues.
No, not about that. Music, maybe?
Music, yeah, like personal interests. I don't know what else.
Well, if they're high school students, they can speak about like future, like or careers, or like how to choose careers if they're interested in. Films also can be a good topic.
Yeah, I can see them. Some of them are very kind of the lack of imagination and creativeness, and so it's difficult to engage them in the discussion sometimes. So yeah, I find it a bit hard when it comes to language speaking activity. So yeah.
Well, I think if you start with the topic, because it depends. I think it truly depends on who you're teaching.
Sure.
So if it's like, and on their interest. So if it comes from them, like there are more chances that they will be active in class. So like they're like, because I know that like it's really difficult with teenagers, like, but if it comes with them, if the topic comes with them, that might be more interesting. Maybe there's something like, viral video or something that like viral video that can be, so they all are watching. So about like you can talk about that feelings.
Okay.
Always feelings always like this. But I think the clue here is that it should come from them. And this is the most
how do you originate that step? Like how do you prompt it in?
I could start like, because like you can do with with the very beginning, like not at the very beginning of the lesson, but at the very beginning of your work with them. Okay, so you get to know the students. Okay, guys, so like, could you please write a list of topics that you will be interested in, like something that you would like to talk about?
That's a good idea. And maybe if they have written the same things,
Exactly,
they've chosen the same topic, maybe I go with that. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Even maybe you can ask them to bring materials as well. Maybe they can bring their own favorite music or favorite song, and you can work with it somehow.
Making a kind of presentation as well.
Yeah. Or maybe you can ask them like, who is your favorite, favorite actor, favorite actress, favorite something, food or something.
I did like bring in the classroom like your past object that you're more, affectionate with, and it worked out. Yeah, but when it comes to discussions, like it's very, with teenagers, it's hard to making them, talking to one another and sharing their opinions and stuff.
Yeah, they're very economical with words as well. Yes, I noticed that. This is the age you cannot do anything about it unless
especially this year that we've been on the internet, like doing distance lessons at home. It was very hard for them to do it. But thank you.
I think, Sarah, I think it's also like, I wouldn't necessarily ask them what topics you would like to talk about, because they may have no idea. They don't want to study very often.
Yeah, that's right. The lack of motivation sometimes.
Exactly. And you are the teacher. You should know what I want. And as opposed to asking, what topics they might like, I would ask questions about themselves. To find out more about them. What do you like? What's your hobby? What do you do in your free time? Where do you go on holiday? Make it personal. So that it's for them, it's about them. And then once you get these snippets of information about them, you can design really personalized lessons for them. And actually, Gabi has a nice idea in the chat room. And she suggests that you could perhaps get students to prepare discussion questions for the next lesson themselves. And I did that once. We had a topic on, I think it was shopping. And one of the tasks was for the students to work in small groups and come up with questions that they would like to find out about each other regarding their shopping routines or habits. So they needed to jot down questions towards the end of the lesson, and then the following lesson was built on those questions. The questions were given to a different group of students, and they just went on. They needed to answer those, and it was so nice because the questions came from them, and it was aimed to them, or at them.
There's also, there's also some activity that you can do. Like, for example, they all know different, like they have some knowledge in different areas. So you can just like put on the board, like a wheel of fortune, like divide it into different bits, sections, and say, okay, so this is about, like, for example, biology, sports, I don't know, history, films, something like that. Divide them into groups and ask them to write down maybe 5 general knowledge questions that you have answers to. And like, say, for example, so the I don't know, like for example, Milan won world championship in like this and this. So like provide them like options. So like it's like who wants to be millionaire or something like that. So question and the answers, but they create the questions on the topics that they can choose. And in this case, and then they can play the whole game, so that they can in teams ask each other questions, and they can learn from each other. Like just a thought.
Thank you.
And I can see that in the chat room, Maria has some really lovely ideas and suggestions as well. Maria, would you like to share with us?
When you say ideas and for the students to talk, to make them speak in class, I just kind of like pointed out the fact that nowadays Netflix seems to be the thing everybody talks about.
Yes,
that's true.
And I don't know whether you just come across, with mature students or and young students, everybody is watching Netflix. And when I say, well, no, I don't watch Netflix, why not? It's fantastic, it's excellent. Everybody's trying to sell it to me. Among young students, I mean, there is so much going on and so much discussion, and they do discuss it amongst themselves. And I think it's something of course, the level of the students has to be, they have to have a certain level as well. But even with the not so old ones, you can still find, how to downgrade the level for them to speak, to discuss, and to talk about the series they are watching at the moment. So that could be an interesting topic. Another thing, which is, I think it works well as well, is when it comes to humor, because this is something that I think each country, Germans, French, Spaniards, Britain, of course, but we leave British out of that. They all have a comedian or somebody who has been popular or still popular as a comedian, as a national comedian. And of course, the sense of humor may not be, because sense of humor varies from one country to another. But I mean, you can just bring students out to talk about that, to discuss. Well, we have this, this comedian, and sometimes, encourage the students to find the clip on YouTube of that particular comedian, and present it to the rest of the class.
Yeah, that's brilliant. There is a very good website which is called tubequizard.com, if I'm not mistaken, and they have they created an amazing library of short YouTube videos. They can have like this, and with specific listening tasks. And you can have listening, but it's like to develop listening skills. But they still can have, you can still have their like speaking activities, focus on vocabulary, focus on grammar. But this is all about like recognition, all with these little bits of videos. So, and it's amazingly interesting. They can have interviews with young actors. They have different like interviews or different bits of, like, as you said, like of different comedians and TED Talks, a lot of things with ready-made tasks. It's a listening though, but like you can build on that, like and develop the speaking conversation out of it if you want.
Yeah, I would just wanted to add that also when it comes to music, music now seems to be very uniform all over the world. Everybody seems to be listening to the same groups, but not necessarily. And very often, we found with French students and German students, they do have their musicians, their groups in their own country, that very often, of course, everybody seems to be singing in English, and they want to share it with the other students in the class. And that's also, I think, it's a good way to for the students to discuss the different types of music, or even ask for the students' opinion. What do they think of that, and whether they think it's good, it's cool, or
and what feelings you have while listening to it, right? And why you listen to it, what memories you have.
Yes,
absolutely. Yes, I think it should work with teenagers.
Yes, but I refer it to teenagers mainly. Teenagers, 15, 16, or even 14 years old. I mean, everybody's into Netflix and music, and then if you want to be a little bit more formal, sometimes it's just not to talk about Christmas celebrations in the UK as such, or British traditions, but like, for example, Swedish have their own Christmas traditions, French have theirs, Spaniards, Italians, and I think I've heard that Italians, when it comes New Year's or New Year's Eve, what they just throw all the old furniture out of the balcony, or perhaps it's a Roman thing, I'm not sure, which is quite hilarious. And then I think there's this kind of anecdotes and stories that other students are curious to know and to find out. I mean, some cultures have, I wouldn't say weird traditions, but interesting, different ways of celebrating occasions, different occasions of the year.
I was thinking about it, and I read about it. I was always wondering whether it's true or not, and now Sarah's saying that it's not true.
It's not.
I have very hard times imagining like Italians just throwing things out.
A Roman friend of mine said that's what they did, but then again, I mean, apart from telling me that they ate lentils on New Year's Eve, they eat lentils in Rome. But then again, please correct me. Perhaps they've been having me on.
Oh, it's true about the lentils. You see?
Oh, excellent.
So it's true about lentils. Yes. Yeah, I think it's amazing because you can find like it's brilliant if you have a chance to work with international groups, and then in this case the students can share their like customs, traditions, and what they do, what they don't do. And or if you have people who travel a lot and they can just like share their experiences, that might be helpful. But if not, if you're like monolingual class and like all the students are of the same nationality, it can still make your like speaking activity quite communicative if you set the task. Okay, let's talk about like how would you like if you need to tell your friend, or if you need to tell somebody, or like if you need to write on the blog about this, so what would you say first? It can be a podcast, actually. They can record the podcast, still speaking, right? But they have the aim to communicate, speaking about their traditions or something like that. Yeah.
Well, regarding to speaking and recording, they love recording themselves. Speaking, or even just using like their mobile, and they love it, and then just presenting it to the class. They something they do love a lot.
This is brilliant. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Right. Do we have any other questions? Gabi was writing that there's a very nice masterclass about using advertisement for teaching and ads, and this is a great tool to be used to get students to speak as well. So this is, I absolutely agree. So this is a very good resource to talk about ads in different countries. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Okay. And Olga.
Yes.
You are a teacher trainer, so based on your experience as a trainer, CELT and data trainer, what are the most common mistakes that you see trainee teachers, newly qualified teachers, or even experienced teachers most often make. And what do you think the reason is behind making those mistakes, and what can we do to address or correct them?
Well, I just like it's exactly what I was saying in the presentation. So the most problem is that like when you prepare the speaking activity, so people very often do not imagine this activity, do not visualize it in their head. So they have their idea. So I want them to talk, and then I give them I give them the topic, and they will talk about it. But like, if there is no communicative purpose, if there is no like scaffolding, if the teacher doesn't have a clear idea who is starting the conversation, who is finishing it, so then it's like there's a problem with speaking. And even after that, if we like, even after the activity, if the students were talking for some time, so they were doing something, but then as Gabi was saying, there's no feedback at the end. So there's no feeling, like there's no this feel of achievement, this feeling of achievement that the students have. So usually say, okay, so all right, we talked about something. We know that we can talk. What's next? But if they're actually reaching something, so if they're having an argument, or if they're having some sort of like outcome of it, and that as a result they walk out of the classroom saying, okay, so our team won, or we managed to take, I don't know, my favorite boots to the moon, and then in this case this is some sort of achievement. So this is how they can like structure the argument, so they have the feeling that they can structure the argument, they can organize the ideas. So this is it. So I think this is the main problem the trainees, newly qualified teachers have, because they have like it took me a while to figure out what I want the students to do, because they say, okay, so here are the role cards, you play do the role play. And then they have no idea, and they started reading. He is going to and they have no idea that this is a new identity for them. So you need to build it, you need to show them, you need to demonstrate, and all this, it takes a lot of thinking on the teacher's behalf, and it takes a lot of preparation time. But once you get into the routine, it's getting easier with time. Yeah. So I think this is the most important thing.
Yeah. And we have a question, Olga, if you can see that in the chat.
Yes. Just hold on a second. So this is, how can we deal with students like myself who in the past just didn't feel I was getting enough feedback to justify the purpose of speaking at all? That's how I felt. Okay, Gabi, I think it's very, very important, and thank you very much for asking this question, because bringing it up, because it's really like people do not understand. You cannot overestimate the importance of feedback. So if I'm a student, so I want to get information about, first of all, if the teacher is there for me, or what the teacher is doing there. So, and I need to know that the teacher is listening to me, and the teacher is maybe or maybe the teacher has her own opinion about the subject. And this is a very important thing. And this is okay, so what do you have as a result of your lesson, or as a result of your discussion? Okay, we agreed on 3 things that we're taking to the moon. And the teacher can ask some questions. So yes, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to take this? If I were you, I would never take this, because, so you need also to interact with the students to give them content feedback. I think in this case, it's very important for the students, first of all, that you acknowledge that they are that they are working, and that they are they were speaking, and you acknowledge that you value their opinion as well. But you also have your own opinion that you can share with, because it's as I said, it's a 2-way street. So we are learning from each other, and we're interacting with each other. So that's one thing. And the second thing, so as you know, a lot of students come to language classes to learn something, to learn a language. And especially if you're working with adults, you probably come across such students who say, you need to correct every single word that I'm saying. You need to correct me more often, because otherwise I won't remember the things. And if you like, you do not tell the students that if I correct you every single word, you'll just stop talking. You don't want to like to interrupt the flow of a conversation, whatever, like no matter how bad this flow is. But you need to also make sure that the students understand where they make mistakes, so where the problem areas are, and that they need to know how to correct it. It's another stage, you know, like to understand like when to correct, how to correct, and when to interrupt the students and where not. Like usually the rules are that like you don't interrupt when there's a free speaking activity, so when there's a like discussion. But at the same time, if they all are making the same mistake, it's worth just helping them at this point, and either like provide the word that they need, or just correct the word so that they, you know, that they will be using it word for at least 5 more minutes later on, so that it would make sense to make correction right away. So it's a tricky thing, but I think it will take time for each teacher to develop your own skill, like your own way of correcting the students. So that's another thing. So like there should be 2 ways that we give feedback. So the way the feedback on content, that's a must, to acknowledge that they're speaking, to value their opinion. Yes. And the second one, yeah, they like I agree with Gabi. And the second one, it's like a language. And you this is what you wrote. Teachers often provide very mechanical feedback after speaking task. They just write up examples in the good language and 3 mistakes, and feedback is over. Agree. So you have to differentiate what you need to give feedback on, whether it's just pronunciation, whether there's some language, whether there's I agree. Students feel that feedback is mechanical, and I always tell my trainees, do not do it just for the purpose of, you know, like ticking the thing. Like you tick, like you have the feedback, so 3 words on the board, fine. Yeah, well, feedback should be done in like it's a good chunk of your lesson. It's about like 5 or 7 minutes of your lesson where you like this is what you do while monitoring. So we're not just sitting down, like, you know, relaxing, but we just monitor and take notes and like see what the problem areas are. After that, put it on the board, maybe have a competition, make a grammar auction, so that like they can they can work with the language. But again, yes, of course, Sari, it depends on the aim is if it's an accuracy activity or fluency activity, yes. But even with the fluency activity, it would help if the students can work with the language. I would prefer actually if you, for example, not focus on like grammar mistakes or some functional language mistakes, but like very often what happens is that the students use like their own language to translate, like to use direct translation from whatever language they speak into English. And it doesn't make sense in English. So what you can do, like you can notice these things, like maybe collocations are wrong, maybe some idiomatic expressions like are not there, maybe something else. And you just like put it on the board and say, okay, how can we improve it? What do you think? What's another way of saying it? Or, you know, there's another way, like there's another, like it's a very good expression in English, which is din, 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 and you put it on the board and the students are learning something new. It's not that they're error correction, but it's not that you're like focusing on the errors, but like you're helping them to be better. And if you put it in a very interesting way, so like you like add some flavor into it, like idioms or collocations or something like that, then they will probably remember it better. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, and Anya Kalbushevskaya just did a very like great sessions on feedback. So you do have them in your workshop library. It's really nice. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Olga, when for instance we teach, you know, traditional PPP grammar or vocabulary lesson, present, practice,
Production.
Production, exactly. So then we move from accuracy to fluency.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, first we focus on the target language. We make sure that the students can get it right, and then we take it into controlled and then free of practice activities where
you can flip it
or free them. And that's my question, whether is this relevant in a speaking skills lesson, and is it possible to move from fluency to accuracy as well? So how
Why
does
not?
it work?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on what you want to achieve. It depends on your class. You can start, like, you can flip it this way, because you can try it out and see how it works with your class, because a lot depends on your students, because sometimes students are really, like, really like restricted. They say, okay, we want it this way, we do not want to move left or right, so we want, like, give us the examples, then, like, we will practice it, and after that we'll do free practice. So, like, you have students like this, and but if you try it, like, if in a different way, you can start with speaking and you can work with it. So you can set up the activity, and then they can speak about, like, they can talk about, like, different topics, like they can tell each other stories, like personal stories about what happened to them when they were kids, and practicing past simple and stuff like that. And then, while monitoring, you collect some things, and then you put it on the board, and you say, okay, so this is another way of saying it, so let's drill it. So you drill pronunciation, you show how to say, then change the rules, like change the pairs, and then ask them to do the same thing, tell the same story, but now based on corrected version of it. And this is how you build accuracy as well. So you can do it both ways. So you can do it like flipped version studying from fluency into accuracy, which is called like task-based learning. Usually it's about this, right? So we flip it a little bit. Or you can do it like presentation, practice, production. It all depends on your aims. It all depends on what you want to achieve. And a lot depends on your students. So it's all like you take it from the students. So, and this is so much easier if you ask them to write the questions, write the words, write the phrases, and work with it. So it's so much like it's not you are thinking about the questions, but they can come up with so many questions, so many, I don't know, like things that you can discuss. So it's it can be really interesting if you trust your students. Yeah, if you like, don't be afraid to trust your students, because they do have a lot of ideas. Yeah, in this.
And it also involves getting to know your students. So once you
Absolutely.
know them,
yes,
then you can trust them more, probably. So yeah, and what about you? You mentioned repeating the activities, so task repetition. What do you think about that? Because sometimes the students, get bored. Oh, but I've already discussed this question with my partner, and they think that it's over. But you can hear that they may need much more practice. So
yeah, I think in this particular, it all, again, it depends on the situation, it depends on the students. But if they're doing it like this, I would ask them to answer the same questions, but either using some phrases, new phrases, or I would give them, I would narrow down the questions. So maybe I would add some more questions under this. I say, okay, so be specific. When was it? How was it? Like what you did and who you see. Maybe I would even give some task to the person who is listening to this, to him, and ask him, okay, so you listen and write down how many new expressions from the board this person is using. In this case, that will help them to stay focused. It's a bit mean, but like sometimes it does work. Yeah.
And maybe changing the interaction pattern can work as well. Asking them to change pairs, or instead of
course,
pair work.
That's what I say. Of course, you don't do the same thing with the same person, so you need to change pairs. Or like another way of doing it, you can tell about your partner's story. You can tell your partner's story to a new partner. In this case, they will have the first activity. So they talk to each other, they tell each other stories. Remember, take notes, try to And maybe you can, well, like you can even put them like what, when, how, like how old and stuff like that. Then you give feedback. You can give language inputs of like the best way of saying this and this. And then you tell this story to your new partner. You tell the story, like your partner's story, to your new partner. Yeah. Right. Problem solving activities are the best, of course. Yes. Very, very funny, very helpful. They definitely involve different skills. And they can be dilemmas or they can be problem solving activities. Yes. Absolutely right.
Yeah, and what's your favorite type of speaking activity, Olga? And I'm actually, I would be interested to hear from our attendees as well, if they have something that they can share with us in a minute or so. Olga, what's your?
Oh, my favorite, I love, my favorite activity is the one I showed it like the other, like in the previous week, like workshop that was like on Lexis, where you give them the slips of paper. They write the words on the slips of paper. It's still speaking, but they write the words on the slips of paper, and you put them in, like each person has 5 slips of paper, for example, like flower, cat, dog, or something. And some of them vivacious, maybe. So some students, if you don't tell them what's going on, they can be quite imaginative with words. They don't know the task though. And then they need to, like, I use it as a mingling activity, and they need to ask each other questions using one word on this slip of paper. And another person needs to answer this question using one word on their slip of paper. And this is very communicative, because this is what we do in real life. We ask each other questions, we answer questions, right? So you ask questions, answer questions. If the slips, if they match somehow, so you exchange the slips, and you now have a new set. You have a new word now, and you move to the new person. And then you have a question, answer, question, answer. It saves so much time. It saves a lot of effort from the teacher's side. And if you have like 5 minutes at the end of the lesson, they all love doing it. Or like, for example, you know that you always have latecomers. So you can start with this activity so that they can just like start with walking around and asking each other questions. And then like at the feedback stage, to say, okay, what do you remember? So like what new things have you learned about your partner, or something like that? So what you have new words now. Who gave you this word? What was the question? It's a very tricky one. Yeah.
Amazing.
So that's my favorite.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this with us. And I have one final question, because we are getting to the end of this session today, Olga. Is just what makes a speaking activity effective? If you could just again highlight the most important information, your biggest tips, top tips for us.
Well, first of all, it should be relevant to your students. The second of all, it should be communicative. It should be real life. This third of all, for teachers, it should have, for students as well, language value somehow. So they need to practice English whether you want it or not. Yes, and it should be followed by feedback. So the feedback that is, in this case, it will be satisfying for all of them.
Exactly, and acknowledges our students.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
What they were talking about, what they were discussing, and the language use as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
That was so much pleasure. I love it. Yeah, I love when I can hear people, not talking to the screen.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Olga, for your input session and this discussion, answering all our questions today.
My pleasure. I thought I just really believe that it was helpful to some people.